very tense afternoon for everyone. So thank you for coming on. We'll just give everyone a few more minutes. And this is our awesome team from CCL, Modestine, and Michael.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Modestine, can you put Trung and I in a breakout room real quick?
Sure. Okay.
Everyone. So as I said before, we know it's a really tense time for everyone right now. When the verdict does come out, we're going to take some time for everyone that just needs some space to speak or to not speak.
They're reading it now, Trung.
Okay, we're going to actually pause recording then so that, let's see, yeah, let's just pause the recording here.
All right. So it's good to be with everyone. I really want to kind of situate this work around something that's relevant for you all. So let me tell you what we were planning to do, and then give you some choice here on what we do. So the plan was to take something around your strategic initiative and apply this tool, Polarity Thinking, to that initiative that you have. So that's one path we can go down and work that. The second is, for those of you who watched the pre-recorded video and had questions, or who want to have discussion about anything that seemed helpful to you, provocative to you, about how do we kind of bridge differences with a tool like this, like Polarity Thinking. Third thing is, I can just go through a summary. If most of you haven't had a chance to see it, I can go through a summary of kind of what is the core, kind of what we're talking about. And then we can have a conversation about that. So, whatever way makes sense for you to let me know kind of what would be more helpful for me to recap the summary if most of you haven't had a chance to watch the video and then have a discussion, or get into the application.
Yeah, recap would be great. I didn't even know that there was a video.
Okay. Thank you. Perfect. All right. So let me give you a little bit of intro. Where I'd situate this and thinking about your toolkit. So to me, polarity thinking is really about overcoming resistance and big differences. And there are two pieces of content that CCL is going to be providing. One is polarity thinking. The other one is going to be something called boundary spanning, right? But they were like two engines of a plane, like two ways of. So I'd say this tool is not the right tool if you kind of know what needs to be done and everyone's kind of already agrees and you really are just about executing something. But many of your strategic initiatives and frankly your mission on the earth are things that require other people to not just agree, but actually bring something to the table, right? Bring resources, influence, co-create something. So polarity thinking is extremely powerful for that. And it explains some of why things are hard, why it's hard for things to come together. So let me share my screen. I'm going to go through the core. This is fundamentally a mindset and a tool set. I would just say personally, it's been the most transformational thing for me in my practice of leadership, particularly around being inclusive, because it gives you a way of standing firm in your perspective and including and allowing other people to stand firm in their perspective, right, without making it an either or. So typically we get set up in an either or with competing values. So it's either my value or it's your value. And polarities are for the case when we're both going to stand in our difference without compromising, meaning kind of we each water down what we're thinking. We're actually looking for a way to hold both of these things together. So let me share my screen. Just give me 1 second to find slide deck I'll use for the recap. Okay. So Polarity Partners is just a group that we have a strategic partner, CCL's strategic partnership with, and they popularized this tool. So you'll see some references to them. We always want to give credit that this work largely comes out of the work that they've done. So I want to start with saying polarity, sometimes I'll call it tensions, are things we all are familiar with. And often they're below the surface. Often they're things that we feel before we can see in a transparent way. So I want to start with one that everyone has a lot of familiarity with, which is change and stability, right? This is a very common tension. We want to just build, this is the core of the tool called a polarity map, where you put two values that are both good side by side. And then you see those four quadrants around them, where we actually then start to populate the quadrants and explore how they're related. The key to this map is right in the middle. It's the and. So often we get divided on different values. Polarity thinking gives us a way to let them lie together for a greater purpose. So I'm just going to walk through this basic example. And typically we would do this in a more interactive way, but I just given the context, I'll kind of do most of the population through here, and you can just kind of walk along with me. So if I were to ask the question, what are the benefits of change? So the upper boxes in this tool, we talk about the benefits, the good things. If I were to ask you, what are the great things about change? You might say innovation, new ideas, new possibilities. This is just kind of pre-populated example. Talks about relevance, being able to deliver on future plans, innovation, that sort of thing. So all those are great things, right? Those are things that everybody wants. You look at a list like that, you're like, I want that. I want that for my team, my organization, the coalitions I'm a part of. And then we went to the other side and said, well, what about stability? What are the benefits of stability, right? And you might, things that typically would come to mind would be predictability, being able to get better, right? If I have a stable environment, then I can build on it and move to excellence. There's security, safety, comfort, all those kind of things. So in this example, predictability, consistency, comfort, opportunity to push toward mastery, clear expectations, right? With stability, there's clear expectations about performance and measures. There's a safety without that. There aren't a lot of surprises. So these are two things that both, we can see the benefits. They're good things. Now we get into the power of polarities and seeing how they're tied together. The next question is, what if we overdo one to the neglect of the other? So what if we overdo stability to the neglect of change? You all would be able to predict, as would I, some of the things that will happen. If we overdo stability, we get complacency, right? We miss opportunities for change that could bring more organizational success, reach our goals. We may fall short of the innovative ideas that we have. We lose good people, right? In the list, we could make a list a mile long about what happens if we overdo stability to the neglect of change. So here's the first lesson with polarities. The same activities that bring the benefits on the upper box also can bring the problems on the bottom box. So the things that we would do to bring stability in a certain season of time in the life of an initiative or an organization or a team start to bring all those benefits, the predictability, the consistency, clear expectations. Those very same things at a different point in time can bring complacency, boredom, losing good people, all of that. We can go to the other side and we have the same story. If we overdo change to the neglect of stability, we have chaos, we have uncertainty, we fail to deliver on plans because we're constantly going from thing to thing. People are burned out. Expectations are unclear about success. It's an unsafe environment in that sense. So same thing on the change side. On the change side, the things that we would do that we're really excited about, creating a future opportunity, the upper box, those same things can throw our teams, our organizations, our coalitions into chaos, into uncertainty, can burn people out. So point number one was that the activities can produce both things. So there's a little humility that we all get when we look at this, right? Which is, the thing I really care about, that can both bring harm and bring good. The second is we have preferences that create blind spots. So each of you would have a preference here between change and stability, right? Somewhere on this, if we were to ask, okay, what's your preference? Maybe we just do it quickly. If you have access to your annotate feature, you can click annotate in your upper menu bar, and then stamp or draw or something. Like pick the side that you would say, if I had to choose, like some people will say, I'm in the middle. Don't be in the middle. If you had to choose, are you more of a change person or a stability person? So I just did annotate. I clicked on change. Jessica, I think, is showing in change. Yep.
How do you do it?
So
I'll let them know, Michael.
Thank
you. If you go to the top of the screen where it says you are viewing Michael DePass screen, to the right of that, it says view options. Click on that drop down box and you should see the word annotate. And then you can choose your stamp. And when you click on the stamp you want to use, go to the area you want to drop it and click, and it should post.
Oh, so we're pretty evenly split. Okay, good. So this is great. So let's just talk to the change folks. So those of you who have the preference for change, the stronger that preference is, the more of a possible blind side you have to the lower box under change, right? You're less sensitive to it. And the reason is because the harder you're going after those upsides, the innovation, the progress moving forward, you're willing to tolerate, right, some of that chaos and uncertainty. You're willing to tolerate a lot of it to go after that. Now, for those of you who check stability, so you have a strong value there in the upper box, and you have more of a tolerance for what could feel like boredom or complacency or whatever, not because you like that, because you like consistency, clear expectations, you like that's getting to mastery. So you can see if we were an intact team together and we're working on something, we have these different perspectives that could really tear us apart, right? The people who really value stability, if we're trying to do something new, they may show up as resistors to the change effort. This gives us a way to get out of a good bad frame about that, right? Say, oh well, they're bad and I'm good because I'm change person. My background is K-12, so as a young leader, I would, and mainly worked in high needs schools, and sometimes I misunderstood my zeal for change, right? That people who were looking for stability, in my mind, they were bad and I was good, right? I was on the side of kids, they're on the side of whatever, right? Something else. And not to say that that doesn't happen, but what I learned was what they were actually resisting was my lack of attention to what they care about, which are these things in the upper right hand box. My lack of attention to providing enough clarity about expectations and consistency and predictability. Because I had a huge tolerance for this chaos and uncertainty, because I had a huge value on change. So these are two fundamental things that this way of thinking, the and is the power, right? Which is polarity thinking answers the question, is there a way for us to work together with our differences where it's not one or the other, where stability or change, where one of us wins, right? It's a death match to see who wins. Or is there a way for us to leverage our differences to actually get somewhere better? So can we get somewhere where we are collecting innovative ideas and moving and making progress, and we have clear enough expectations and opportunities to develop skill for mastery and all that? That's what this is all about. So this is a simple example. Honestly, if you could clear the annotations, thank you. Let me just pause and see if there are any questions or reactions or thoughts about. Sorry. Let me give you the definition, then I'll pause. I'm still annotating. Okay. So that's a story we could tell. So in a nutshell, polarity thinking is about 2 points of view that are both true. I actually rather say they're both good. They're both things that we want, and they have a relationship that they need each other over time. So we tested that by saying, and the simple test is always, if I do this to the neglect of that, can I predict what's going to happen, right? That's the kind of simple thought experiment. So if you take something like something we're all familiar with, task and relationship is attention. In every group we're part of, every meeting, family reunion committee, whatever, there are people who are oriented more toward getting stuff done and people oriented more toward connecting with people. We could do the same exercise we did before and say, if I overdo the task part to the neglect of the relationship, we could predict, right, that people are going to feel disconnected. We won't necessarily have the relationship to go through shocks and hard things. Same thing, if we overdo relationship to the neglect of task, right, we could predict what would happen, that we don't get anything done, we don't get the purpose done, and why we're formed, why we're together, why we're funded. So it's these kind of things, these things that are good, right? Polarities aren't for putting something that's good and bad together, right? Good and evil. It's not about that. It's about two things that are both good, but they have this relationship. And if we don't understand the relationship, we don't understand the currents underneath you don't understand what's happening underneath the surface when we're trying to get things done, which is our differences are dividing us, and they could work powerfully together. So let me stop sharing for a second, just see if there are any response. Oh, there's some in the chat. Let's see. Already burned out in stability mode. Okay. Okay, change seems inevitable. Yeah, so Darlene, it's an interesting part. Some of these things are going to happen anyway. The question really is, can we be a little bit more intentional and use the differences rather than them happening to us? So if I'm trying to get something done and I'm a nonprofit, I'm trying to get the city involved and other people have other interests, can I use the difference instead of it being this or that? So for sure, we're not going to change the macro context of what comes, but we can find ways to be more inclusive leaders that help us get where we want faster. Jessica, you're muted if you're.
Sorry, I forgot my camera's at the bottom of my so not prepared for that, but I was just trying to turn my video on.
Okay, cool. All right. All right, so let me move forward if there are any other questions or thoughts. Okay, so people call polarities lots of things: wicked problems, paradoxes. I like tensions, but we're all talking about the same things: opposing strengths. So when we think about polarities, I mentioned that they're kind of underneath the surface. They are shaping what happens in the outcome. So there's a predictable flow to them. The predictable part we just talked about. It oscillates from both poles. We'll get to that. But the other thing is it's unavoidable, indestructible, unstoppable. You can never check it off. So stability and change, I could ask each of you, how is that being leveraged in the organization where you are or in your life personally? And you never say, oh, I'm done with stability and change, right? It's always there. You may be in any one of those boxes, like experiencing the benefits, upsides or the downsides. But the thing is, it's free. So leveraging is free. Your intention doesn't cost you anything to pay more attention with the lens like this as to what's happening beneath the surface and try to use it. It's an attention cost more than anything, right? It's not. So with task and relationship, that simple one. If I design an agenda for the team that I lead that allows time for both things to happen, it doesn't cost me anything. But the people who have the preference on that's different than mine, so my preference is on task. People have a relationship, I'm going to get more of their best because why? I'm more inclusive in my design. It didn't cost me anything. It cost me a little attention to the fact that my focus is not everyone else's focus. And there might be something else that they focus on, A, that I want to include, and B, that I actually need, right? Over time, I actually need more of that. And so that's the power. One of the powers of this is it doesn't require anything. It doesn't, it's free. It's in some ways. So the other thing we could compare this to is problem solving. So problems have a right or wrong answer. And many of you are in the positions you are because you're great at problem solving. It's one of the things that's really required for leadership in most fields. And at the same time, the problem is different than a polarity. It's different than attention. So problems might be, what house do we buy? What's the best way to get to the mountaintop, the north face or the south face, right? Who should we hire for this position? These problems to solve. It has a single answer, right or wrong. We solve it and we're done. Polarities, we're not done. Many of you have seen this image where some of you will look at this and you'll immediately see an older person. Some of you will see a younger person. And a lot of times in our work, in our mission in the world, we spend a lot of time arguing about what is in the picture. Is it the older person? Is it the younger person? And that's kind of the argument. It just diverts all of our energy. But we can really get into it. So if we had the time and we went about 12 minutes in and I split half of you up and half of you were going to make the case for the younger person, half of you for the older person. About 12 minutes in, it would start to get real, right? People would start to get attached to the point of view. The arguments will start getting a little bit tighter, right? And it's just a picture, right? So imagine if we're talking about how we allocate resources, right? How we administer roles, what our objectives are, right? How we look at those things and we're seeing different things. And if there's a way for us to see it together, wouldn't that be great? So, problems have one right answer. They're done. Polarities are two or more things that we have to manage over time. We have to keep in mind. We're going to get to a tool that's really helpful for that. So we talked about preferences, paying attention to what other people. So another way to think about this is, what are other people that I need to be involved in this care about? What's the thing? What's the value that they're valuing that's different than mine? So it's really yes and. If you take nothing else away, what we're really talking about is yes and not yes but. So the but is the dismissive, right? Yes, I know you see a young lady, but it's really an older lady. The yes and is the inclusive part. So a basic core polarity is inhaling and exhaling. If you took a big breath right now, you inhale, great, it feels good for a little while, but then all of a sudden there's too little oxygen. Too much carbon dioxide builds up, and boom, we want to exhale, right? Now, could I argue from a research-based perspective to give you great research around what's great about exhaling? Absolutely. I could give you tomes of research around it. And at the same time, does anyone want to volunteer to just exhale, not inhale? No, right? Inhaling, could we make the case that it's research based? It's proven that inhaling is beneficial. Absolutely. But no one's right. No one. So we get that, and the feedback loop is really fast on this. With the feedback loop in our life, in our work, in organizations and mission in the world is often long, and we don't see the connection oftentimes between my decisions here and then what shows up down there. Polarities gives us a way to see some of that connection. So another simple example is activity and rest, right? If we are working on running a marathon or something like that, activity, we need it, right? It's how we prepare and build our capacity. Rest is where we actually build muscle and get and actually get stronger. So if we're doing some physical activity, we'd have to manage this tension, not wanting to overdo activity, not wanting to overdo rest, to figure out how we get to where we're going. This is just another way of visualizing that oftentimes we're arguing. Someone's standing on the right side saying that's a square. Someone's on the left, that's a circle. We're not looking at the cylinder, right? And the question is, can we put our energy and focus on the cylinder instead of arguing about whether it's this or that? So let me just give you some examples of common tensions. So in leadership, one is visionary and being grounded, right? So we all can think of people really visionary and yet kind of unwilling to really look at the realities of today, or people who are just grounded in today and they can't see the future. So these two things can work together, right? Polarity thinking can give us a way to leverage both of those instead of having to choose either a bright future or a scary present. Maybe it's both a scary present and it's a bright future. Being self-assured and humble, right? We don't see that if we overdo one to the neglect of the other, we can see bad things happen. At the same time, both of these things together, those of you who've read Jim Collins' work about level 5 leaders, they're basically people who leverage these tensions, right? They're self-assured and they're humble. Directive and participative, another one. We tend to be polarized, right? We have a preference on either participative or directive leadership, and those things go together and they have downsides. One other thing I would like to say is, with this is we're not talking about 50-50. So the message here isn't, sometimes we say, well, it's got to be balanced. We're not talking about balance in a 50-50 sense. It's not saying that in a meeting agenda, half the agenda needs to be on relationship and half the agenda needs to be on task. You might only need to do 5 minutes on relationship and 95 minutes on task to actually get the upsides of both of these. So we're really talking about leverage. It's really, the thought is, how do I get the benefits of both of these things? So really our invitation, I'm going to show you a few more examples. It's just to think about your strategic initiative or something you're trying to get done and think about a real tension. And maybe we could just talk through, if one of you has one that you're willing to talk about, we could just kind of talk through how we might use the tool to address it. But let me show you a few more examples. We talked about task and relationship, candor and diplomacy, right? Big one. Both are powerful and one without the other creates problems that we can all understand pretty quickly. Responsibility and freedom, right? How much when we're designing something for other people. Control and empowerment, similar, grounded visionary. We talked about structure and flexibility. So how much do we, require everyone to do it the same way? How much and where do we give room? Logic and creativity. Individual and work group is related to another one that's part and whole. So you can imagine, in an organization, you have a department and the whole organization, right? You have the organization and maybe the coalition, right? All those things, there's a natural tension that's there. And each one wants something, right? So if you think about the individual department or the individual group in a coalition, right? They are things that might be best for them. And then there's what's best for all of us together. And that is a huge tension in a lot of our work because a lot of our work requires other people. So the question is, how do we not say it's either we want people to just focus on what's good for everybody and not themselves, or just focus on what's good for themselves and not what's good for everybody? How do we get into the and space? Okay, I'm going to skip this. So this is the map that I'll show you. this is the core of the tool. We've already been introduced to what's in the middle part, right? Which is there's the and the two values. So we did stability and change in the ovals before, but you could put any one of these other ones. And so we fill in the 4 boxes the way we did before. What are the benefits of each? And then what if we overdo one to the neglect of the other? And then on the wings, we have action steps and early warning signs. And this is where it gets to be powerful. If we're doing this with people who have these differences, different values, is we actually name what are the things that we're going to do to get the benefits of both. So we're not talking hypothetically, right? We think back to the stability change. Let's say we're an intact group. So we come up with what are the action steps on change? And that might be whatever we're change initiative. And what are the action steps on stability? So the people with a value on stability actually can relax their fear that the change process is going to throw us into that lower left box of chaos and lack of clarity and lack of safety, because we actually commit to action steps. Then we go further and we say, what are the early warning signs that we've gone too far in one to the neglect of the other? So we ask, what are the early warning signs that we've gone too far in stability to the neglect of change? Now, if you prefer stability and you're leading that process, you need to ask the people who value change about the early warning signs. You don't need to ask yourself, because you're pretty insensitive to those early warning signs because you really want the upside. You need to ask the people who value change. What would it look like? How would we get an early sign that the boredom or having a workplace that's stagnant where we can't keep our best people? How would we know? Oftentimes, the early warning signs, we need to think about new measures, because a lot of times our measures are late, like late, super late. If if we have massive attrition, it's a late warning sign. There's nothing early about that. If we're not viable financially, our organization, that's late. So sometimes we don't have these measures, but together with the group that we're working with, we come up with those things. Like how would we know? And it's good to pick 1 or 2 and not have 1,000, right? So so that we could actually measure. Same on the other side. We go to the change side. So how we know if we're in chaos and that sort of thing. And then so you can imagine if we were working together, we had strong perspectives, that this is a very practical way for us to say, we're going to take into account, not in lip service, but practically what the different values are here. And we're going to manage it. So if the early warning signs start getting hit, we go back to the table and we change the action steps. So if let's just say we said early warning sign around over-focus on change was, we're going to do a staff barometer every month and see, or coalition barometer, and see how people are feeling. And if we see people say, the chaos level is, 4 or 5 on a scale of 5, like we got a problem. So if we see that, if we set this up, then we come back together and say, okay, it's too fast. We got to slow it down. It doesn't matter what the good is that we want to do. It's too fast for this group. We hit the early warning sign, change the action step. What we don't say is change is bad, change is wrong, and stability is right. That's not what we say. With this tool, we say, what are the action steps we need to change, right? And same thing on the other side. So I hope you can see it's super practical. A lot of my work is, like I said, is in schools where school leaders will have this flip chart up on their wall. They'll do these kind of things, will do this with their staff, populate it together, literally have it up in their office. Everyone who walks in, and they'll tell stories and point to the flip chart. Like, this is where we are, right? We said we're doing this, right? We haven't, because the people get afraid about getting in the downsides of something they don't want, right? So it's a way of reminding people too, we're managing this together. We're managing this difference together. The last thing I want to say is just these rectangular boxes at the top and bottom are what we call the greater purpose and deeper fear. So the greater purpose at the top would be, what's in it for us if we do this well, right? If we manage this tension well, what's the benefit? And a lot of times that's where I like to start, right? Before we get into the differences is so if we were changing stability and we said for our group, what's in it for us if we do a good job managing this? And it might be, impact, right? We live out our mission. It might be something, something that we both can say, yeah, we want that, right? Stability people, that's part of why they're nervous about the change, because they want to be here, right? 5 years from now to have more impact, or they want to continue serving people we've been successful serving in the past. So we put up there what unites us, and then also some people are more motivated by fear than aspiration. So we want to be clear, if we don't manage this well, what's going to happen, right? And that's what's the place we both don't want to be. So I love starting with that, right? And then saying, okay, let's talk about the tension. Let's talk about early warning steps. Action steps and early warnings. I'm going to show you one example. And then if one of you has, so this is support and accountability, one that we did with the school that was an overly supportive environment, right? They were in the downsides of too much support, not enough accountability. And so we worked with them together, the leadership team, to come up with action steps, early warning signs to manage the tension. But just this example, their greater purpose was retaining good people and engaging staff. They were really worried about that. So everyone, the people who were on the support side were afraid that accountability, might impact that. The people who are on the accountability side felt like if you don't have accountability, you're not going to be able to keep good people. But so everyone agreed on that. Like we need to keep good people, and we need people engaged. And so they wanted to move the needle from an environment that was in the lower left-hand box, that was a culture of nice. There were excuses for competency issues, people not getting tough feedback, and they were in the upper box. So they had both the benefits of support, right? That people felt respected and mistakes were treated as learning opportunities and all that, but they were in the downsides, serious downsides there. And so they didn't want to lose that, but they wanted to add the accountability piece. So this is an example, they came with this together, and then 3 times throughout the year, we did check-ins, right? How are we doing on these things? How are we doing on the action steps, early warning signs? Do we feel like we're moving closer to that greater purpose of retaining good people and engaging staff? And those things did change over time. Some of the action steps are like added things, took things off, that kind of thing. So you're actively managing it. So it's like, you think about surfers use the same rip ties that can pull people under. Surfers use them to get somewhere. And that's what we're talking about here. The same thing that could divide people, we're going to use it with action steps and early warning signs to try to move the needle. Let me stop sharing and see if there are any questions, or if anybody has anything to share. Modestine has put in the chat just a blank map that we'll ask you to use to take something that matters to you, run your strategic initiative, and fill one of these out. But let me stop and see if anyone has one real time that's in your head, and maybe we can kind of play with for the next 10 minutes or so. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just can be something we can use to learn. If you don't have a strategic initiative example, or if you have it just in your work context, if you have an example of something you think, now this is a tension I think is going on.
I guess we have a tension across a lot of things in the community board that I'm on. Not only power structures, but funding, timelines, communication, between like city agencies and the way we operate as a community board. So I guess I don't really have a question. I'm just trying to apply it to those differences.
So what do you think, let's just play with that. What do you think might be the differences in values right underneath that? So that's driving some of those things that are showing up around timelines and resources. What might the agency value? What might the community board value that's creating that?
I mean, it depends on the agency and the committee, but I guess, the agencies are being led and, by like people in government who are in certain terms, and then the community board has, a more focused view on real life impacts in the community, and the city agencies are trying to look at things systematically, and I guess that's one example.
Yeah, that's great. So that's one way we'd frame is like a part whole, right? So the community board has a narrower focus, right, on what's good for the part. And so I think polarity thinking can help in two ways. Right, one is the language of the and, right. So if people are framing things as it's either what the community, what this community wants, or it's what everyone needs. Polarity thinking is one way to say, well, how could we come up with an and, where we say, what actually does the bureaucracy or the city structure actually need for everyone, right? And it may not be, there may be specific things that we can tease out. And what are the individual needs of the community board? And maybe it's your community board and other communities, right? That there's differentiation that's needed in some places. Because the fear that the city folks could have, the city and county officials could have, is if we allow some flexibility with your community board, right, that then we open the floodgates and now we have to meet everyone's need. We don't have the resources. We can't. And that's the either or gets them in that box, right? So the question is, if there was a greater purpose we actually want something together as an outcome for people. And we can talk about what are the things that both of us need, and then so you could see this as a tool to lean into that difference, right? It doesn't mean that you can work together, but it means it's a way that's a lot more productive. So think about the difference in a conversation that is, I understand, you're articulating, or I hear you articulating a need for X, and we want to help make that happen. And we also really have a focus on X. And so can we have the and conversation instead of the or conversation? So I think that's where something like that could be helpful. And particularly if they really care about the value, right? So if you really are articulating, my test for this is if I articulate the opposing value, right? Would they nod their head as I'm saying it? Like, do I really have it without judgment? So again, that's why this doesn't really work if it's if it is truly good and evil, right? It doesn't work. But if it's not that, if it's just like we're in different seats, right? And they're in a seat, for example, where they have to make decisions for a broader group of communities, for all the communities, that seat creates a natural tension. So that's a good one to play with.
Yeah, I think we had actually a win on this recently. So I think just thinking about this, helps me understand how we got to that point previously. So
Yeah.
Just, understanding where we're each coming from in terms of, we need this information to advocate for ourselves, and they listen, eventually. So it's good to understand both sides.
Yeah. And sometimes without even talking about polarities or terms, right? Even I've been in situations where thinking about an early warning sign, right? Again, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get them to relax their resistance to what you're saying because they're afraid of what's going to happen. So if they can get more comfortable that the thing you're afraid of is not going to happen, like we're together not going to let that happen, right? That's not what we're advocating for, and that's not going to happen. And so, sometimes even just thinking about and talking about, well, can we monitor this, right, and come back together and check it, allows the person to think, okay, well, this person actually is not trying to have a win-lose situation with me, right? They're actually trying to look out for their interest and my interest. So sometimes it's helpful, even like you said, just scaffolding in your own thinking. It's not necessarily that you're even using that language, but obviously you can explicitly, kind of like the last example, build a map too, with people or with yourself. Like sometimes the directive participative is something. When I went through a 360 like you all did, it was a big thing that came up. My team saying, hey, we like being on your team, but we're way too included. You're pulling us into all kinds of things we don't want to be in, and we think it's your job to do that, right? So I was like, whoa, I have such a huge value on participative leadership. I was like, whoa. polarity thinking a map myself. I had one on my wall where I literally was trying to move the needle so I could be more directive where they needed it, where they were asking for it, without giving up the participative. So polarity thinking is also helpful for us personally when we think, instead of framing it as like, oh, I'm a bad leader, right? So sometimes we get a 360, something like that. We're like, oh, we're a bad leader. And really what we're dealing with is there's two sides, two things that go together. We're over focused on one. We're in the downsides of that one. It's not really a good, bad thing, right? So I was able to look on my wall and remind myself, like, I'm not giving up being participative, right? Because that's a core value to me. I'm adding being directive. And so then I got around my own resistance to being more directive, which really, had to do with growing up with a very controlling father, not wanting to be him. And that was in the way. So the and though helped me to say, okay, I don't have to become that to give the people that I lead what they need, which is they need more direction from me. And they need less meetings where I'm asking them what they think. So they were very happy about that. Okay, so we just have a couple minutes left. Any questions or thoughts? I'm the program office will have my contact information. I'm happy to be helpful. We're asking people to take a week, so a week from now, to fill one of these out around a strategic initiative and upload it on the platform. Shanice, I don't know if you wanted to say something about where people do that.
Yes, I was trying to pull up the learning platform.
Okay.
Let me see if I could share my screen.
My 1-year-old, you might hear in the background, is an tension between his way and our way. It's not a polarity. There is right and wrong.
So to assess the coursework for polarity management, just go to coursework and navigation in your hub. For cohort 4, you're in year 2, and if you're in cohort 3, you will be in year 3 of the program. It'll be a change leadership module. And then just go down to polarity management and click on required assignments. You can also scroll through the other information. Some of the stuff that Michael talked about today is also in this video as well, if you need to go back and rewatch. Here's where you can assess the maps here. And then this is where you go to actually submit your map, so Michael can review and provide you feedback.
Yeah, you can just take a picture, you can handwrite it, or some of those tools let you type in, if you prefer to do it on a computer, type it into a PDF or fillable PDF or PowerPoint. It's fine. Yeah. Whatever's easiest for you. All right. Well, thank you all so much. And everyone, let's take care of ourselves in this challenging time. So,
Thank
see
you.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Everyone.
Thank you.